The opportunity in presenting our featured speaker this morning, veteran, pro golfer, friend, and just all about great guy. Will help us do anything. He's the first one to sign up for Seneca River Days. I mean, what more could you ask for than allow me to present Walt Butcher, our hero and friend, great friend of all. Great to have you.
Let me start out by saying two things. If you see me fumbling around papers a little bit today, it's because my eyesight isn't what it used to be. I can't quite get down on it. I thought there was going to be a flashlight here.
Oh, I tried to get it.
I need that up here so that I can help myself a little bit. But I just want to say that I've got a number here that I want everybody to remember or write down so you have it. And that number is 4048. 4048. Now remember that because I'm going to ask you a question a little bit later on pertaining to 4048. But it was, as I said to a number of people, this trip to Washington and this flight was a great, great day. Bob Meadows sits back here. Bob went about 2 years ago. He sits back there and he said, if I tell something that isn't quite right, he'll correct me. So that's where we are with Bob. But I would like to say, oh, where's that flashlight?
Dennis went to the...
Oh, it's gone again. All right. Well, I don't need it. But I would like to say, I'd like to thank many people that are here in this room, some in this room, that helped make this trip possible by, first of all, pushing me a little bit to go, and secondly, doing a number of things to make it possible for me to go. Thank you, Dennis. If I get that, I think I can read these notes. I wrote them big, but oh. Yeah, that'll do it. And so I want to thank all those people. I'm going to spend a few minutes, just a very few minutes here, for talking just about some generalities, and then I'm going to go through a slide series and cover with you the specifics of the trip. But this was probably the most, the well-organized of anything I've ever participated in my life. We used to take pride in the organization I worked for at Agway, and we'd get complimented quite often for the way we conducted meetings. Everything went right like clockwork. But I'm telling you, this was I've never seen anything work as well as this did. We left Syracuse, we had to be down there at 5 o'clock in the morning. Dennis Posey came out and picked us up about 4:20 and took us down to the airport. We got to the airport and you walked in there, and the first thing you meet people from on their flight, they take you over, hand you a boarding pass. You don't have to go through security or anything else. That's all taken care of ahead of time. And then we started down. And to my surprise, now remember, this was 5:30 in the morning. There were 300 or 400 people there to greet us, thank us for our service and so on, that had come in at that time of day to meet us as we were working down through to get to the plane. After we got on the plane, we headed for Washington, and when we arrived in Washington, I thought, well, you know, they have these flights coming in out here all the time, so there probably won't be many people here. And my estimate is there was between 3,000 and 4,000 people along the lines that we went from the plane, but we went back through there. And they'd reach out, they'd shake your hand, they'd thank you for your service, and it was just a day that you can't explain it, but I could feel it. And it was just one of those days. We had when we got there, then we had breakfast, by the way, on the plane going down. Then once we got there, we were taken out and put on 4 different buses. Now there was 80 of we veterans, and then every veteran had a guardian. the guardians all had to go the night before for a 2-hour meeting where they explained to them their responsibilities and exactly what they had to do. One of them was that they would never be more than 3 feet away from the veteran that they were the guardian for. So that if they looked over and they saw somebody standing with one of these shirts on, which we all wore, they told us to wear layers so we could take it off. And one of the things they told us, right, the first thing was, you take the layer off, but you put this shirt back on, because they wanted this on for everybody. And then you'll see in the pictures here later, where the guardians had a different colored shirt like this. Once we got there and went out finally they took us out and we got on our buses. Everybody had a bus that you go on. I was on bus number 2. Everybody had a boarding seat. That was the guardian and the veteran. And they started out. And I have never seen, I looked at the schedule ahead of time and I said, how with the traffic and everything in Washington can they possibly be on time? But I'm telling you that the guardians were told the night before, it's your responsibility, when we tell you what time to be back the bus, to be back here with your veteran, and so on. On every bus, we had 2 nurses that were on each bus. The head bus had an extra nurse, the head nurse, and that was in case that there was a problem on one of the other buses. The one up from up there would go back, but they always wanted two on each bus, 2 nurses on each bus at all times. There was a wheelchair on each bus, every bus, for every veteran. So whether you used it or not. Now in my case, I didn't use it, and I didn't want to use it, except for once, and I'll tell you about that a little bit later. But my daughter had with this modern technology on her cell phone, where she could plug something and it would tell how many miles we walked. My daughter and I walked just over 4.8 miles that day down in Washington, going from one to the other and around. I didn't use the wheelchair because I didn't want to use the wheelchair, and I'm a little stubborn at times, my daughter says. But anyway, it was just, everything was planned. I couldn't figure how they got from this point to this point, which was 3 or 4 miles away, and they'd leave here, they'd get you on the bus, and there was one honor flight person on each one of the buses, and he would go to every bus or every seat and check everybody on every stop, so he knew exactly that everybody was in the right seat and on there and loaded, and they'd take off. Well, I didn't figure it out until about the 2nd or 3rd stop, because I looked up there and there was a big red light and I saw the bus go right through, and oh my gosh. But then I realized after I looked around a little bit, there was a police escort that took them from one place to the other, so they knew exactly if it was going to take them 4 minutes to get somewhere, 4 minutes, they'd have you there. When they'd get you to these locations, they would then tell you had so long to go look at this memorial or that memorial, and then you would be back to the bus again. So it was a very, very well organized thing. As I told you, there were 80 veterans and 80 guardians, and then there were the nurses that I told you about, and then they also had other people on each bus to keep track of you. And we had on each bus a tour guide, and we had a lady that was very well versed, and even though we weren't stopping, she would tell you as you'd go by, you'd see the places. And it was just so well organized that it's hard to even talk about anything that went wrong, because there just wasn't anything that went wrong. Everything just went right. We went on. Yeah, I knew that would work in a minute. I've told 2 or 3 people since I got back here. I said, there's 3 days that are very special to me that I can't explain how. And I said, there's been many days that have had exceptional things happen through my life, but the 3 days that come to mind as the most important days of my life were August 20th, 1949, when my wife and I got married. And the second day was February 5th of 1964, when my daughter was born. And this honor flight, certainly he comes right in there as the third one. This was the most emotional day that I've ever had in my life. I think I take things pretty good, but I'm going to tell you, you couldn't go through this if you'd been through the war and so on, go through what this day was without shedding a few tears. It was real emotional. So it was one of those days that I'm just glad I had to. Now I would like to just, let me look here at my notes for a minute. I'm going to start with the slides now. So Dennis, if you will get up there and push the button and give me something to push to change the slides, we'll get along good. If everything works. If it doesn't, Dennis is to blame. You realize that? I want to comment while Dennis is coming up here before he gets up here. One other. That sign over there, his daughter did for us, had it down at the station when we got back into Syracuse. I'll comment again later. And that they carried around and so on. The only thing wrong with it, the link's wrong on there, but that's Dennis's fault. He told his daughter wrong. But don't feel too bad, it's not very far off. That says private, and it was a PFC. And if later on, if any of you want to ask me how that came about, and the questions afterwards, I'll be glad to tell you how I ended up as a PFC.
I can edit this film, you know.
You what?
I can edit this film and say I was a great guy,
No,
instead of making a mistake.
You can carry on. I would, and I also, I want to comment now, and again, we'll comment again. If you look through the book over here, that my daughter said to me right after the night that we got home, she said, now for Father's Day, I'm going to put together a book for you of this. And that book she put together for me and is sent to me of the entire thing from, they warned us, you know, they called her up 10 days to go and 5 days to go and everything, right up to the day. And so that book is for that. In there you'll also find this picture, which was the people from, many of them in this room, that were down at the Syracuse airport when we came in that night and welcomed us down there, welcomed all the veterans in there, especially me. I think there was 13, 14, 15 from the Syracuse group here that were down there to greet me, and we had it was just every step of the way, it was a great thing. Now I want to mention one other thing before I start with the slides. There was one gentleman with us, a veteran with us, who was 100 years old. During the war, World War II, he was overseas. He and two of his brothers were overseas. One of them was killed in action, and then just a few days later, the second one was killed in action, and the government then shipped him back home. But his brothers were both buried down at Arlington Cemetery, and I'll be touching on Arlington Cemetery here too. And he had never seen the grave of his brothers. Down there at one of the stops, they had a small van pull up. All these vans had lifts on for wheelchairs and so on. And they took him, rather than to go where we were going to look at some mine, they took him over to the cemetery to see his brother's graves. He had never seen them. So it was, they had everything planned just to a T, and it went off very well. So now let's turn to the slides, and
You want to do it, or you want me to do it?
no, you can do it. Oh man, anytime I'm getting anybody to do anything, I do it. Somebody, Dennis, I guess, came up with this slide. The 44th Infantry Division is the division I was with. We went overseas just after D-Day. They had taken the shore there at Cherbourg, France, on the channel, and they had moved in probably 15, 18, 20 miles, something like that, by the time we got there. We were there then at that time, our entire division, 44th Infantry Division, which was a National Guard unit that was reinstated for the war. And I got sent there 6 weeks before we went overseas. And then we went from there on through and went all the way through France, Germany, and into Austria when the war ended. Okay, you can flip her. Here shows you a bus, a typical bus that we had there that we went on as we traveled around. Every bus had a lift on it for those. Probably 25% of our group, at least 25 of them, I would say, went in wheelchairs all the time. About another 25 or 30 of them probably went in wheelchairs some of the time. And then the rest of us walked every place we went. But that's a typical bus right there. Each one of them had a number on it. You knew which bus it was. And you had a seat assignment, as I said earlier. Okay? That's a picture when we were on the bus, just we were getting on the bus to go. And I sat there and my daughter sat over on the other side. And we were just getting ready to take off in circuits. There's just another picture of it. Flip right on. There's a picture of, I can't tell who it is with me, but another veteran anyway, and I were there talking and somebody took a picture of it. Then we had welcome veterans, thank you for your service and so on. Those signs were very prevalent in Washington, many places, as well as in Syracuse.
Well, they had other honor flights also the same time?
No.
Across the country?
No.
You had exclusive?
Yes.
As far as I know, we were the only
Yes.
ones that day.
No,
What was that saying about?
White House.
White House.
I thought so. We didn't get to the White House, but we drove one block from the White House as we went along the buses. My daughter took that picture of the White House as we were going by. I was standing in front of a memorial there, and my daughter took that picture there of that, move it on again. There's a symbol of the Army and at the memorial. Again, move on
Do
again.
you have any of the Navy?
I am not sure. I don't think so. Oh, really? They really only put the important ones up there.
Okay, you got me.
You set yourself.
Moving on to the World War II memorial here. This is probably one of the greatest moments I've ever had, is getting to that war memorial. It is just beautiful. It was done just excellent. I'm going to take, if I can see here, I'm going to just read you a little bit about that war memorial very shortly. It said, a monument to the sacrifice and commitment of the American people to the world at that time. President Clinton signed a law on May 25th of whatever it was, and authorizing the building of this. Senator Dole was really the back of this. He's the one that pushed it all the way to get it done and put up down there. And so it's just a great memorial. You can move on now, Dave. When you get to the building itself, there's many messages up on the walls. The building, the monument itself has 50 pillars in it, and one pillar for every state in the Union. And as you walk around that, and in the center is a great big pool with a fountain in it, and so on. It's just a beautiful thing. And then you'll find sayings such as this one up here in many places around there by President Roosevelt, President Truman, Senator Dole, many other people telling of different things pertaining to it. You can move on, yeah. Pearl Harbor. And there's the fountain that was in the center of it, and you can see the pillars as you go around there. It had a Pacific side and an Atlantic side, and that's just so. Now here's bronze stars, the wall of bronze stars on it. Now who remembers what the number was I gave you a while ago?
48.
Oh, I thought these on it. Each one of those stars represent 100 deaths in World War II of service people. So you can figure it out, just add 2 zeros on there, and it was well over 400,000 that were killed during World War II. And that is very, very impressive. That was just, like, I can't explain it. Okay, there I am, my daughter wanted a picture of me in front of the wall, I was standing in front of it. And here's the New York killer there. She took a picture of that also. We moved on and moved around, and that shows you the gateway in and out of there. And just a magnificent, magnificent structure, and so much thought went into it. Just it gives you a great feeling. Then as we moved away from there, we moved on to the Jefferson Memorial, and we were able to get a picture of that. We did not win that, but we got the picture of it. And again, one of the beautiful memorials down there in Washington. It's another picture. Then we moved on to the Washington Memorial, which was here, and that we again saw at a distance, but my daughter got a pretty good picture of it. Then we moved on to the Lincoln Memorial, and we stood out this side of where those people are. By that time of day, and all the walking we'd done, I looked up there, and there was all those steps to go up, and all those steps come down. I said to my daughter, take a picture of it, and that'll be all right. I don't think we'll go inside. I didn't want to think about walking up all those steps. I found out later that if you go to the side, there is an elevator that you could have gone up, but I didn't know it at the time. Move on to the next one. Well, that doesn't no, back up one. That doesn't show it, but that up in there, she zoomed in and got a picture of the Lincoln statue, which is up above the doorway where they go in there. You can't see, you can see it a little bit there. That's a statue of Lincoln. Okay, you can go on. Then we drove by, we didn't go in, but we drove by the Pentagon. I've heard about the Pentagon all my life, of course, but I couldn't imagine the size of that building. We saw it from 2 different streets, one street here and one out. My guesstimate is that building, just the building, the Pentagon building, covers anywhere from 4 to 6 acres. It's fabulous, it's big. You can't believe how much area it covers down there. And we got a good chance to see it from the outside, both sides of it. Then we went to the Air Force Memorial. This was a relatively simple memorial, but very fitting. Just as we got there, when the buses pulled up, the bus driver said, now go over, you got so much time, be back. And the Guardians had the time schedule, so they knew exactly when to be back. And he said, when you get back, your lunch will be on your seat. And there was a nice box lunch on our seat for us. And he said, eat that between now and the next stop. So they had everything planned right to the T, so they didn't waste a minute. But that was you can move on now, Dave. There's another picture of it showing you the memorial. Here it is again. Now the next, there's an Air Force, that was outside of there at the Air Force Memorial. Move on to one more. Now that picture, they took a group picture of the entire group that were there, tried to get them all, and I think they got most of the veterans that were there. They again arranged to have a whole row of chairs along the front. They set a note, and then the rest of us stood behind as they took that picture. Okay.
Same group.
This is just a close-up of the same thing, some pictures which my daughter took shows me in there. Then we moved on to Arlington Cemetery. And I always heard about Arlington Cemetery, but it is just, you can't imagine again the vastness of it. There's only two presidents that are buried there, President Taft and President John F. Kennedy. Those are the only 2 presidents that are buried there, but there's thousands and thousands and thousands of graves there at Arlington Cemetery. Very well kept facility. You just can't You couldn't keep any dirt in it. And wonderful sight, we drove by that and around it all around. We didn't get out at Arlington Cemetery, but we went around. These are all pictures from the cemetery. There's two cannons over there at the entrance to the cemetery. Then we moved on to go to see the tomb of the unknown soldiers. When we got there, they said they announced and told all the guardians, take your wheelchairs with you because these veterans can't stand up over the length of time we'll be there. So my daughter and all other guardians wheeled the wheelchairs over. We got over there and they had a spot where we could get right up near where they was. And we all sat down, the veterans all sat down. We found that there was about 200 of us with the guardians ourselves and the other staff that was with us on one side. And then along the other side, there was probably 300 or 400 people, other people over there watching. And we were there for the changing of the guard. I learned a number of things there. Everything goes by 21 there. That's a soldier standing there, stands in the position he is for 21 seconds. Then he takes 21 steps. He does an about face, and then he stands for another 21 seconds, and then repeats, goes back down where he was and does the about face. Everything's 21 on the deal. They're on in the summertime for 1 hour a day, 1 hour shifts, and then there's a changing of the arms. And in the winter, it's 2 hours that they're on. That has never been, it's always been guarded ever since 1937 when they started. At one time, they had a terrible storm went through Washington, and the commander, whoever in charge, went out to the guard and said, come on, this is just too bad, you can be relieved. And the guard said, no, he said, I'm staying here through it. And he did. So there's never been a second, night or day, that hasn't been guarded since 1937. There were 4 different soldiers within the tomb, one from World War I, World War II, and 2 other wars, Korean and Vietnam, thank you, wars. But later they found through DNA and so on, and were able to match the DNA of there with somebody, and one of them was taken out and had a private burial and so on. So there's three bodies in that tomb at this time, but it was and everything's so precise, and the changing of the guard. We saw at the other end where one guard come in, this guard turned and went back. When he got back there, he simply stopped for just a very short time, and then he walked on around and the other one started in walking. So very impressive to see that also. Okay, you can move on. That is the tomb, go back to that is the tomb itself right there. Is a tomb that was right probably from where we were, 60, 70 feet from where we were. Okay. That shows you the group with all of them in wheelchairs sitting there as they were looking in, and all the guardians were standing behind it. Then we went on to the Vietnam War Memorial and saw that, and then a very simple, if you think of it, was relatively small, let me put it that way, but very impressive memorial for the Vietnam War. Then we moved on to the Korea one, and that is a reading there. I can't read it, maybe you can, and we can move on again, Dave. And here is some more of the same thing, but it didn't show very. There's a better picture. That is of the Korean War. It's very impressive the way they've done that with the wooded areas, similar to what they were fighting in over there, and the various soldiers in various places throughout the wooded area. There again shows you a better picture of it. And then we went on to, this is a wall. There was, I think this was also on the Korean wall, as I recall, just there with a saying on there about
Freedom is not free.
Yeah. Freedom, yeah. This is just a water, shows the water in a pond that was there at the memorial, that memorial. There, of course, is a picture that you've all seen many, many times, a picture of the Marines and the Iwo Jima, where they picked her up and the flag up. Beautiful, beautiful. This here is a little bit different. This we saw and we wondered what it was, and then each, as I said to you before, each bus had a tour guide on that told you everything you go on. She pointed this out to us and said, take a good look at that. After World War II, the country of Netherlands wanted to do something to show their thanks to the United States for saving Europe and so on. And so they built this, that's a chime, and that chimes every now and then, so many hours, that chime, and that's a chime tower there that was donated to us from the Netherlands. Okay. There I am, and one of the few times that I sat in a wheelchair. We got back to the bus once a couple, 3 minutes early, and that wheelchair was sitting outside of there, and I said to my daughter, I want to sit down, so I sat down, and she took a picture of it. But every place we stopped, the wheelchairs were there for anybody that wanted them, and those that didn't, they didn't take them out. But they were right there for you, and that one was one that sat there. You had help getting on and off each bus as you got on and off if you needed it. And they had a lift on every bus to those that were in wheelchairs regularly. They would get out and go down the lift. It was just so well organized, okay? This gentleman on my left up there, and your left, he was the one that was on our bus that was really in charge of the bus, our bus itself. And he came over one time and he said, I want a picture with you. So his daughter took that picture while somebody else was taking another picture for him. And but he just looked out for you, checked anything you had, you just could ask him and it was taken care of. Here's my daughter and myself, and I wanted to mention here that the book over here, my daughter, and maybe I said this earlier, but my daughter did that book after we got back. She said, I'm going to do that for you for Father's Day, and she sent me the book with all the details from the build up to going to the day there and so on and so forth. Very much appreciated. She did a great job, and along with many other people that helped out. This is the walkway in Washington. It was all decorated. As you walk through there, it was decorated with all kinds of World War II and other wars things there as we were leaving from the loading dock, getting back up to go to the buses. There we were on the bus. I apparently was relaxing, which I did every chance I got, I'll tell you. And here's another picture, but I want to cover a little bit on this picture. When we're in the table, you see that brown bag over there. When we were coming home, all at once they came in with about 3 duffel bags, and I thought, what in the heck are they carrying this in here on the plane? And then a fellow stood up and he said, in World War II, you will recall the mail call. Well, we're going to have a mail call. And they said, when we call your names, holler high and we'll bring it to you. Well, I got that envelope over there, and there's some of it out of it now, but it was a great big envelope and full. And what had happened ahead of the time we went, they had notified all the guardians, and my daughter had notified all my relatives around the country, many friends around the country, and then many in this room, number in this room, sent letters, and I have letters in there. And I told somebody that, I said just last night, I guess it was, that I pulled them out and was looking at them a little bit, the letters, and it's still, some of those letters still brought tears to my eyes because they were very touching. And then in there also, from the Weedsport School, there was a teacher over there that took her class, juniors and seniors in high school, in a class, and they all made a card thanking you for your service. personally said Mr. Butcher on each one of them, and there was about 40 or 41 of those in there in one envelope. One 11-year-old kid from Cicero sent over and he said, I don't know you, but thanks for what you did for us, and all kinds of things like that. And then many letters from individuals here in this room and that are not in this room that came along, and I'll tell you, it's very, very impressive again. And so we had the letters to read on our way home from down there. Moving on, there we are, some of us see us opening up and looking at the letters. We did that on our way home. Then once we arrived up here, Dennis Placenic's daughter, Emma, had that sign printed up, and I spoke of it before, and that she carried around at the airport. As we pulled in up in Syracuse, they had a fire truck on each side of where we came in, and they sprayed water up over the plane as we were coming in, entering. And then again, we were down, when we first got off the plane, there was probably 300 people there, and I said something to one of the honor guard people, and I said, boy, there's quite a lot of people. He says, you haven't seen anything yet. He says, you haven't even got where it is. The parade's upstairs. And then we got up there, and there was just, I wouldn't even guess, many were there. In fact, there's about 15 people from Syracuse that were there to greet me, but there was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people there greeting us, wishing us well, bringing us back, thanking us for our service and so on. Very impressive day. Here, well, there's the group. There's the group that were there to see me, and I tell you, I greatly appreciate it. It was very, and then we went from there on down to, when we were coming up out, this gal from Channel 9 grabbed my arm and she said, would you mind saying a word or two? And so she asked me a couple of questions. Some of you may have seen on Channel 9, I've had a number of people tell me they did, and asked me a couple of questions about the flight and so on. And then we moved on. Here, just as we were getting off, and I put some of them over on the table, they handed us those things that we had to bring home. We received that, plus many in the front of that book. You'll see there's many pins and coins and everything else that were given to us at one time or another. Here was a parade at Syracuse where they went through and welcomed us back home. And again, hundreds and hundreds of people there, bagpipes and so on. And we moved on through. There's the thing going along. And we were welcomed back, handshake after handshake, thank you, and so on. Just a feeling that I can't express to you. And that just shows you that you can keep it going days.
Well, it's a video now.
Oh, that's a video.
It's a video.
You can click it, Dave, it'll go on.
And there they were coming up through. And there was a sign again that Emma did. And then there was a closing ceremony here in Syracuse where everybody that went down, they had seats for them, they sat, and some dignitaries making remarks about the flight and about the war and so on and so forth. And then following that, we moved on our way out. That shows Dennis and some of them there. When I got home that night, Dennis said, there's one more thing. Dennis again brought us home. He said, there's one more thing that you need to see. And during the day while I was in Washington, Dennis went out and painted my flagpole, which needed it. It was getting rusty, and painted that and put a new flag up. And so there's a picture of it that he took then, and show us the next one. And that one that he took when we got home showing the flag. So I had just a marvelous day, and one of those days that I can you can never forget it. And I can't even, I've tried, but I can't explain the emotional feeling that you had so many times. Maybe I told you this earlier, but I don't know. But there was We stopped at one place, we got there to the bus about 5 minutes ahead of when we were to load, and there was some benches along there, and we sat on the benches. And 3 young ladies, probably 12, 13, 14 years old, came walking up. And just when they got there by me, this one stepped over and she said, I want to thank you for what you did in World War II. It's what you did makes our country as great as it is. And things like that went on all day long, just very, very touching comment. And to think that about a 12 or 13-year-old kid, and this wasn't anything she had practiced, this was from the heart, you could tell. She'd just come out with that. It was just great. And then there's signs like this, I want you to, and so on. And I think that concludes the slides at that time. So if anybody has a question or two, I'll take 1 or 2 questions if you have of anything I've said or didn't say. Hearing none, I want to ask Dave Greer to come up and read a prayer that was included in our final statement that we received from the Honor Guard group. And I asked him if he would come up and give that prayer to cap this off. And it's been a real pleasure to visit with you, and I hope you've got some good out of what I've said.
And this is the prayer for veterans. Proud of our nation, they answered her call, defending the freedom and safety of all, on land or on sea, or in jets high above. They went out of duty and honor and love. But however they served, Lord, wherever they went, please bless them and help them to know what it meant, and help us to thank them on this holiday, for we owe them far more than we ever could say. Amen. And today is Armed Forces Day, so remember that. Thank you all. Thank you for being a